Good afternoon. I'm humbled and honored to participate in this panel, Changing of the Guards. However, I've decided to rename the panel The Lion King, because I imagine the topic of our panel as the moment at Pride Rock when newborn Simba is presented to his community, signifying the passing of the torch or the changing of the guards. Although Simba's father is still in power, the rising Simba is still very important to the community. Here's a fun fact for you that you may not have known. The Lion King is a very Jewish tale. The Lion King is also the story of Moses. Simba, like Moses, is told to run away. After doing so, similar to Moses' story, a higher power wants Simba to go back to Pride Rock, or Egypt, and bring his people out of oppression by Scar, or Pharaoh. Both Simba and Moses, however, choose to go back to their community, acting as young leaders who successfully take on their roles and uplift their community. This is the story of the changing of the guards. My peer panelists are Mufasa, and I am Simba. But unlike these stories, the story of the Jews needs more than one Simba and Mufasa to uplift their community. I'm just one of the Simbas out there, but I'm here to tell you my story about how I got here and what can be done to ensure that more Simbas choose to take on leadership roles in the Jewish community. I do not have much theoretical and academic analysis on this topic, but I believe that I can speak to my experience to answer these questions, as I represent a case study of one who became a Jewish leader. Thus, I will tell you my story in hopes of pinpointing some important places where we are succeeding in fostering Jewish leadership. The summer before my senior year of high school, I came to Israel for the first time on a science program. While there, I fell in love with Israel, but my positive notions of it grew even more after I came home. In my rabbi's words, I had caught the Israel bug, the feeling of missing the land and the urgency of getting back as soon as possible. So I did. The next summer, after much begging, my family took a trip back to Israel. After that summer, I started college at Scripps College in Claremont, California. During my first semester, I received a hostile email condemning Israel for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and apartheid. This was not the Israel that I had experienced and loved, and I was upset that this email was so one-sided. I wished to defend my Israel, but I didn't know how. I learned that these assertions were not out of the norm, so I took it upon myself to learn more so I could defend Israel and my love for it. The next semester, I took every opportunity I could to learn about the conflict from the Israeli and the American perspectives. I attended conferences, switched my major to political science, and became a fellow of various organizations that offered funding. Through these organizations, I started a pro-Israel club on the Claremont colleges. I'm currently a senior in college, which brings me to today, as a student on my semester abroad in Israel. I came to Israel 4 months ago to participate in Career Israel of the Israel Experience. I'm interning in the field of counterterrorism and security at the ITRR, the Institute for Terrorism Research and Response. Most of us on long-term Massah programs are using our experiences as a springboard for our futures as Jewish leaders. But what exactly got us to become Jewish leaders, and what will it take for us to continue and expand that leadership when we go back to campus, home, or even make Aliyah? First, my ideas about where we are succeeding. My leadership grew when I got to college, where I was offered the resources to create a club related to whatever I cared about, given that there were also others who shared my interests. There were school funds available, and more importantly, there were Jewish organizations willing to support my club. Also through these organizations, there were incentives for individuals to lead, such as free trips to Israel, stipends, social events, and leadership trainings. Through such organizations, I secured funding for my club and organized lectures, events, and meetings. I found other students who had similar interests and recruited them to join. The club has been incredibly successful. Claremont Students for Israel has been featured on many pro-Israel websites, forums, and news articles. I organized an event called Less Hamas, More Hummus, which was so successful that an organization that monitors American media regarding Israel, Camera, decided to use my event ideas for their nationwide campaign against Hamas. The structural opportunities from the Jewish organizations were vital for my success. But obviously, these opportunities only work on people who feel a passion or responsibility to lead in the first place, which is where our community faces the biggest challenge. Please allow me to humbly propose 2 areas in which we can improve. The first problem we face is that a number of leaders are Jewish, but not necessarily Jewish leaders. I had to be pushed to see the importance of Jewish leadership when I got that one-sided email. There are plenty of examples of young leaders who are Jewish, but not necessarily Jewish leaders. Take Mark Zuckerberg, for example, whose Jewish identity, it seems, is not compelling enough to be involved in his work. Early on, we should show why it is so important to apply Judaism in both thought and practice while leading. After these leaders are cultivated, we can inspire them to organize on national and international levels, even beyond their own community. International leadership can be supported through organizations like Masa that bring together Jewish leaders from all over the world to strategize and organize together. A second problem we face is the lack of a safe space for pro-Israel leaders to be critical of Israel without fear of feeding the fire of anti-Israel discourse. Many who are anti-Israel already publicly criticize Israel disproportionately, making pro-Israel leaders feel that if they also criticize, even where criticism is due, they will end up validating anti-Israel viewpoints. This poses a dilemma, because to me, central to being a pro-Israel leader is saying, yes, Israel is making many errors, and I critique Israel because I know it can do better, and I want Israel to live up to the standard we know it can achieve. As president of the pro-Israel group on campus, I see many aspects of Israel's decision-making with which I do not agree, but I don't feel comfortable talking about these issues openly on campus. But until us pro-Israel leaders feel comfortable talking genuinely in public about Israel's decisions and actions, it's impossible to have an intellectually honest discussion that leads to fruitful change. In conclusion, it is my hope that what we gain from this session and from the rest of the conference will breed more Simbas who are willing to lead their community or pride, the Jewish people. For the pride of the Jewish people faces many challenges, but we always persevere, the guards are changed, and the circle of life continues. Thank you.